Kia ora koutou. I'm really excited to be here today to have a conversation with some leading experts around wellbeing in business. During the last 2 years, business leaders have faced challenges in managing both their business performance and wellbeing. Both wellbeing and business performance are regularly reported on, but what's really exciting is that professional services firm BDO New Zealand has now launched the first ever measure of a unique study into the relationship between these two factors. The BDO Wellbeing and Business Index, Te Rangahau or Ngā Hauora Pai, is based on the World Health Organisation's WHO5 Wellbeing Index, capturing feedback from leaders and owners of nearly 600 Kiwi businesses up and down the country. To help me explore this topic today, I'm pleased to be joined by Gina Cook, BDO Advisory Partner, Nick Tuffley, Chief Economist of ASB Bank, and Julie Cressy, General Manager of Benestar, which delivers wellbeing coaching to New Zealand businesses via the XAP Zero Assistance Program and EAP Employee Assistance Program services. Haere mai and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Firstly, Gina, please tell us about the BDO Wellbeing Business Index. What spurred BDO to develop the survey and what are some of the key takeouts?
Sure. So I guess at BDO we work with a lot of businesses up and down the country. So we've been quite uniquely placed to be able to see or observe, the stresses and pressures that everyone's been under, both within their businesses and personally. And so we wanted to understand the relationship between a business performance and their personal well-being, especially given all the immense pressure and stresses and uncertainty that everyone has faced over the past couple of years. We also wanted to find a way to track business wellbeing for New Zealand businesses over a period of time. And we want to use that information to provide advice and insights to our business community going forward, and especially how they can use that to help their mental wellbeing. Well, we at BDO provide obviously a range of services and advice. We're certainly not mental health or wellbeing experts, but what we do know from conversations with our clients and certainly from the survey is that financial pressures are well up there in impacting on people's mental health.
Not experts, but came away with some really great findings. Talk to me about how it's measured and what were some of the key takeouts.
Sure. So to measure wellbeing, we've used or adopted the WHO5 Index, which is an internationally recognised measure developed by the World Health Organization, and it prompts respondents to score how they've been feeling over the past 2 weeks across 5 key areas. What we found was that generally New Zealand business owners' wellbeing was pretty good at the time of completing the survey, averaging 69 out of 100. 61% said that they're feeling better than they did when their businesses were right in the middle of COVID.
Which is some pretty positive results. I know that you've done some analysis as well around specific industries. What are some of the key findings from that? Who's feeling extra positive and who's maybe wavering a little bit?
Not surprising, retail and tourism were quite impacted, but we're really well aware that there is a lot of variability between all of the sectors and people can read a lot more about it within the detail of the report. And this is something that we're really keen to track over time.
It's super insightful. Thank you so much for giving us a rundown and really great to see that businesses are bouncing back so soon after that really uncertain COVID period. You mentioned fluctuations in there. What are some of the drivers of those? Because we can't all be hovering at the same level every single day.
Yeah, well, clearly we've been in and out of lockdowns, both internationally and locally. So we've seen some pretty rapid changes in the economy, especially inflation. The survey does highlight that all of these are having quite an impact on business performance, but also the wellbeing of our business owners. The other interesting point is that looking ahead, businesses are expecting to see further uncertainty over the next 6 months, though the results do indicate that they expect the impact of COVID-19 to reduce. Perhaps one of the key learnings from the report is that financial matters are a key driver of wellbeing amongst our business leaders, both currently and in the next 6 months. Obviously, economic uncertainty is not conducive to a strong financial performance and brings wellbeing challenges.
Yeah, definitely no surprise to see that finances are a huge drive. I'm going to come back to you shortly for some tips and tricks around that, but I'm going to bring you in, Nick, because finances are your area of expertise. What do businesses have in front of them over the next 6 to 12 months? What can they expect and what are some of the biggest watch outs?
We are going through a time of a lot of change, particularly cost pressures and rising interest rates. So some things business will need to be very focused on is the challenge they may find in recruiting and retaining employees, and that's leading to higher wage costs as well. So obviously that's something businesses will be needing to factor in. And we've got just higher costs in general and rising interest rates. So there's a lot happening at the moment. On the plus side, a lot of this COVID disruption that we've had over the last 2 years, we're still going to have some, but it's a lot less extreme than what we've had. It's sort of more limited down to that sort of workplace absenteeism when someone gets sick. So still quite a few challenges, but some of the extreme whipsawing we've had has fortunately disappeared, fingers crossed.
How can companies retain staff but not to put too much pressure on that cash flow and on their finances?
Well, there will be partly obviously the look at remuneration as well, particularly in an environment where people are highly focused on how their own cost of living is going up. And it's also around the sort of working conditions, that worker flexibility as well. So it's also about making that broader employee experience good in this environment as well. So it's not just about the money, it's about the broader, I guess, well-being of life as well to consider.
Which is super, super important. Talking about specifics around cash flow, what do you see as some of the economic factors that might be influencing that, and do you see any key changes here?
One thing obviously is interest rate exposures and managing that interest rate risk and just being aware that debt servicing costs could be going up a bit over time. Now we've got industries in different stages. We may find that some industries are facing challenges, so one thing we'll be watching out for late payments coming through. Also working capital. We're in a time where there's supply chain challenges, people may need to hold on to a lot more inventory, that absorbs cash as well, so that'll be something to watch for. And also those industries that are expanding, perhaps getting on their feet again, tourism might be an example of that, is sometimes the cash outgoings as you're gearing yourself back up come ahead of when you're getting the revenue in, and that can put a bit of strain on your cash flows at some times as well.
Everyone's eyes are firmly on interest rates, of course, because they're going up at the moment, which is very unnerving. I know we don't have a crystal ball, we can't tell what's happening next, but how can businesses better prepare themselves for a sudden interest rate change?
Well, it's always difficult trying to pick exactly what will happen with interest rates. So generally what is a good practice for businesses is to look at, I guess, managing that risk. So you can do hedging, you can spread out your maturities so that you're not necessarily getting hit all at once by rapid changes. So there's a number of tools that businesses can use to just mitigate that impact on their business over time.
So the survey tells us there's a link between business performance and well-being. Julie, what are you seeing at Benestar?
From a business perspective, we're definitely seeing that there has been a lot of people struggling in the past 2 years. I mean, we're talking about financial well-being and mental well-being. They're inextricably linked. We know if you're a business leader and you're worrying about, how you're going to pay your staff, how you're going to pay your suppliers, how you're going to support your family, that is going to, wear really heavily on your mental burden, and that's most definitely going to impact how you are responding from a business perspective. So yeah, we're seeing, particularly from the Zero Assistance Program, which we manage on behalf of Zero, a lot of business leaders have been reaching out for support, and quite a lot of it has been due to the financial ramifications of what's impacting them.
Because of the survey, we saw that the Who 5 score was actually 69 out of 100, which was a lot better than I think most people expected, given the pressures that businesses are under at the moment. What do you think is the driver of that, and what are your thoughts around the resiliency of some of our business leaders? We are very hardy Kiwi business owners, aren't we?
Absolutely. Well, I think the Who 5 is always a snapshot in time. So basically what they're asking you to look at is how you have been feeling over the last 2 weeks. And I think from a business leader perspective, if you were to look at now versus 18 months ago, 2 years ago, absolutely it's going to be better. So from a comparative perspective, if they're looking at how their business is performing, the fact that we are, I suppose, back to what people are calling a new normal, then they would be feeling far better and hopefully a little bit more optimistic. And we know that optimism itself has a really big impact on how people respond and how they feel on a day-to-day basis. Our brains are are wired for negative bias, but once they begin to see, look, actually I can get through this. I've dealt with possibly the worst trading conditions I've ever experienced in my life. So anything moving forward is actually going to be better. So that realistic optimism plays a big part in how people actually are feeling. You know, as human beings, we can often do more than we ever think we can do. So therefore, if they actually reflect on what they've experienced and how they've actually dealt with everything, they can be quite proud of what they have actually done. And that in itself helps us as humans to think, well, actually, we can do more, we can be better, we can actually deal with whatever comes at us. So therefore, you know, resilience itself is also connected to, as I said before, our natural state of optimism. So if you're feeling a bit more optimistic about what's coming, even though, you know, from what Nick's saying and the challenges that businesses are going to face, they still may have that faith in the fact that they can actually deal with what's going to come at them.
How do you maintain that resiliency, and how do you maintain your mental well-being? Because if you're constantly chipped at, it can chip away, and I know that burnout is a real reality for a lot of business leaders and business owners.
Definitely. I mean, the reality with wellbeing is it's about creating habits and creating habits that stay with us. I think often what we look at wellbeing when things are really tough and it's like, right now I have to do something, when the reality is we should be doing something all of the time. So when we're thinking about wellbeing, if we're looking at the WHO5 index, it's looking at things like our happiness levels, our anxiety levels, our energy levels. You know, do we have purpose in our lives? So when I'm talking to people about wellbeing, look, sometimes it's just the basics. It's do the basics well. Sleep. Sleep is absolutely key to our mental well-being. If we're not sleeping well, we can't get to sleep, we can't stay asleep. It has a huge impact on how we respond to everything that happens in our day. So I always really encourage people, if you're not sleeping well, reach out for support and resolve the sleep piece. Otherwise, it's simple things like what we ingest, everything in moderation. Getting outside every day, you know, fresh air is really good for us, and moving, doing some movement. And actually what research will all tell us is relationships. Relationships are absolutely key to us being able to be resilient. So it's actually connecting with others, being able to talk to people, being able to share experiences has a huge impact on our overall mental well-being.
I know we're talking about business leaders and business owners, but also their responsibility is to look after the mental well-being of their workers as well. How do you do that in this day and age? Because I know the gym memberships, the fruit bowls, they're nice to have, but you need to go so much further than that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and look, it needs to be leader-led. Wellbeing is always leader-led. And I mean, and as the airlines will always tell us, you know, put the face mask on yourself, oxygen mask on yourself first before you help others. As a leader, you need to look after yourself. You need to role model wellbeing. You need to make sure you're taking breaks. You know, we're all guilty of doing this, stay at our desks and eat our lunches and work through the day, staying late, coming in early. And sometimes as leaders, that's the expectation you then put on your own staff without necessarily realising it. So it's about picking up the mirror, doing some self-reflection. How well are you personally looking after yourself? And then it's about knowing your staff, knowing your people. Everybody is different. Things work differently for people. I think one of the big wins we've had out of the last 2 years is that flexibility. People are really enjoying the hybrid way of working, having some balance in their lives. So therefore, as a leader, it's know your people, know what's important to them, know what's going on in their lives, and you know, provide some access to support if you can, either through your own EAP program or through through the Xero Assistance Program, which supports, you know, all businesses that actually use Xero as an accounting package. So there is access to talk to people.
Some really great wellbeing tips there, Julie. Thank you so much. Gina, in addition, given the BDO index shows financial matters are a key driver of wellbeing, what are your tips for businesses to drive optimum financial performance in the current economic environment?
Well, we provide quite a lot of tips within the body of the report, but for me, I think key is financial literacy, and that's a great place to start. A lot of our business owners are very, very good at what they do, and then they've got to where they are because they are good at what they do, but a surprising number still probably don't have very good financial literacy. And they're often very, very hesitant to reach out for help when they need it. As the saying goes, you don't know what you don't know. And, you know, some of them might think they're actually doing pretty well, but my question is, you know, could they be doing even better? If you're a business that does feel like perhaps you are struggling with that financial literacy, I would really recommend that they take some kind of financial literacy course. We do offer a course here at BDO called Colour Accounting, or it could be some other kind of financial coaching, or perhaps even tapping into something like a virtual CFO.
Clearly there'll be some massive benefits to actually having that knowledge at hand. What are some of those benefits to really sharpening up your financial literacy?
Yeah, there are so many benefits. And I'd say my clients that have fared really, really well over all the disruption of COVID have been those that do have really, really good financial literacy, have really good handle on their finances. They had either a business plan in place or financial projections. They knew their working capital cycle really, really well, and they had great relationships with their lenders. So when they actually needed to tap into reserves or get additional help, it was perhaps a lot easier and faster for them to do so. This also enables people to move money around a lot quicker and stay afloat. And as the survey highlights, undertaking these types of activities does have a positive impact on mental wellbeing. We also saw in the survey that business owners are quite stretched a lot of the time. 1 in 4 said their workload was too high, and 23% said they felt like they didn't have enough people around them for support.
Which is not surprising because so many Kiwi business owners are often juggling many balls at once and are wearing many hats at the same time. How can they reduce their workload?
For me, it's absolutely critical that business leaders don't try and take everything on their own shoulders, reach out for help. I think there's this Kiwi number 8 wire mentality, very much alive within our business community, especially our SMEs, where the business owner is more often than not the HR person, the bookkeeper, the IT person, and so it's not surprising that this can, I guess, affect their mental health negatively, and that's what has come out in the survey. And I guess the big thing for me is that while business owners are focusing on doing all of this themselves, there's a huge opportunity cost for them. They're working in the business as opposed to working on the business. And if they did have more time to work strategically on their business, and that could be finding other lines of revenue, other ways to do things, this could actually lighten the mental load for them and have a more positive impact on their wellbeing. We also know there's a labour shortage across New Zealand, which is also contributing to this feeling that there's too much work and not enough people to do it. There are more longer-term plays that can help with that, obviously things like apprenticeships and training local talent, but in the short term, adopting technology is a good way to streamline processes. There's a surprising number of people that still enter all of their data manually or use manual processes. And so there are a lot of systems around that can help with that. Again, it doesn't need to be a huge expense or expensive undertaking.
Thank you so much for that, Gina. And of course, thank you so much to Nick and Julie for coming in to discuss a really, really important topic today. For more on the BDO Wellbeing in Business Index, you can visit bdo.nz/wellbeing, where you can find out more tips to help with your business finances. These include ideas and video insights for businesses operating across various industries, which BDO work closely with. And in addition, Julie, where can business people go to for wellbeing and coaching help?
Look, there are a number of places that business owners can go for both themselves and for their staff, and we've put a few up on the screen right now. So look, I heavily encourage you to tap into these resources because they're free and they are great.
Some wonderful resources that everyone should absolutely make the most of. I know I've used them myself, so they are very, very good to tap into. Well, thank you so much. Haere rā, take care, and remember to look after yourselves.